I started following Jesus well over 30 years ago, but it's not been very long. It's been like 4 or 5 years when I've started to realize that when Paul wrote, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind," then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good and pleasing and perfect will. Romans 12, verse 2. It's actually that I need to be transformed to be more like Jesus, to follow in His way. And I think I've kind of strayed from that a little bit. This is me being vulnerable to you because Steve Ingold just today talked about us having to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And honestly, last week when we were here, or last time with Adrian, we talked about friendships and how we can be better friends to other people. And I was thinking, can't we just learn the Bible and feel really good about that and just go back to that? I remember thinking that because this invades every part of our life. Yeah. And I love the message today. Thank you so much for peeling yet another layer of what it means to follow after Jesus, literally following in His footsteps and doing what he said to do and doing what He did and modeled for us. So I've got a couple of questions for you, okay?
Please,
First of all, given the emphasis on empathy in honest conversations, you said I'm not a very empathetic person.
I'm not.
How do you practically nurture and develop both like an emotional, cognitive empathy in your day-to-day? For those of us who don't come born with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that second definition of empathy, where you can learn this skill of putting yourself in someone else's shoes, that's like a legit thing that I try to practice, and it's kind of going back to last time when Adrian was here. It talks about sacrifice. It's putting yourself lower than someone else to go, I want to be in your situation. I want to be in your shoes. I want to understand what that's like. And man, that perspective shift is...
You become more empathetic.
You can, if you can really go down that path of trying to figure out, like, what does it mean? What does it look like with everything that person has going on in their life? And all of a sudden you start to care more and give people more grace because you relate to where they're at and what they're going through. And you don't hold things over them the same way. So... At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I like that. I think somebody once told me, like, just walk slowly with people. And I think that's kind of what pastoring, but that's just what it means to be a Jesus follower too. You walk slowly enough with people that you can hear them and maybe understand them a little bit better. I want us to become more empathetic. You also said that it's difficult to accept truth from somebody that you don't trust. Yeah. So how can we proactively foster trust within this community, ensuring that our intention of speaking the truth in love are perceived with openness? Yeah,
it reminds me of something a mentor told me a long time ago when he talked about make small bets before you can make big bets. And so I'll explain.
Okay. I don't
You're
know
like shaking your head like, what are you talking about? Let's go gambling. That's what I'm saying. No.
Okay.
So in a lot of things, if you make a small bet, like if I'm just gonna put something small into our relationship, like I'm gonna let you in on something small, and I see that you're trustworthy with that. Not that I'm like testing you, but I can see like, oh, that went well. Then the more small bets that I make with you, the more if I win those bets, if we're going to use this analogy, and it breaks down at some point, but if I win those bets, then eventually I have the capital to make a big bet with you. And that would mean like, hey, I've got something big to share. I've got something deep that I want to let you into. And because you've proven trustworthy over those small bets, now it's time for me to make a big bet. And that's what helps cultivate those types of friendships.
I like that, yeah. Because as you're talking about that, I'm thinking, boy, our society is just so broken in this whole area. We don't know how to do that. We put our best foot forward. We don't really share our hurts. We don't share our struggles. We don't, in a healthy, normal way, like an everyday kind of way.
Which rightfully so for some people, because there's not a lot of people that are trustworthy with those things. Like a lot of people would rather shout truth at someone else as opposed to walking through something with somebody. And it's so disappointing.
Yeah.
Especially when it happens within the church, where it's like, I'd rather point out your flaws as opposed to go, hey, I've got things in me that are not healthy, and I know you have things in you that are not healthy. How do we grow together through this?
That's, oh, man, if Cornerstone can become like that, if our communities can become like that, and that spread that to all of our neighbors, I think that's going to be life-changing for everybody. Last question, how do you suggest we strike a balance between self-reflection and, understanding our sin without becoming overly kind of guilt-ridden, self-critical, burdened with guilt, ensuring that our focus remains on hope and on restoration and redemption?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key first is that we keep God's goal with conviction at the forefront of our minds. That the goal is healing. The goal is health. If I can keep that at the forefront, like with anything, if I'm sick, if I have a cold, I take medicine to get better. So, because that's ultimately my goal. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel good and energized and all that. I think the same's true with anything we're struggling with on a spiritual or emotional standpoint. It's like, if my goal is health, then what do I need to do to get to that place? And it's not to walk around all day going, woe is me, which my wife says about me all the time when I have a cold. She's like, you act
You're
like
the worst.
Death has fallen upon you.
Yes.
But I think that's like, we can't do that when it comes to the things that we're struggling with, because the reality is that we're broken. How do we move toward healing? And I think just keeping that at the forefront is so important. Also, one quick thing, the verse you shared earlier, do not conform to the patterns of this world. The verse before that talks about living sacrifice, offer yourselves as living sacrifices. I love that verse so much, because a living sacrifice would have been like, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as a living sacrifice. Any sacrifice put on the altar that was alive would be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to stick around to die. So it's voluntarily submitting and surrendering to say, all right, God, I'm offering myself to you, and I'm offering myself to the people that you've put around me. And in doing so, I recognize my place within everything, and kind of recognize how not seriously to take myself and all those things, and to hold things a little bit more open-handed.
I want that. I really want that. I think this is such a hopeful and exciting message, because we do tend to move into like legalism about ourselves, but what if we just sacrifice ourselves on the altar of a relationship in ourselves, and not in a codependent, unhealthy way, but really just living self-sacrificing.
Which even that, like, so often we have this fear of like, what if we move into unhealth with that, and it just paralyzes us. And so I think there's moments where we got to make those small bets and let people in, and
let's make some small bets. I like that. Well, I want to invite you to join us in learning what it means to be vulnerable with God, to make reflecting on your own actions and words a regular thing. I believe that's going to get us to healing and alignment with God's desires for us. But doing that all by yourself is, can I just say, nearly impossible. You need a community to practice this. So I want to encourage you to join us online. You can click here for more information. You can shoot me an email. I can't wait to connect with you. I'll see you next time.